Now, before you ever start doing a Task 1 academic, you have to be very careful about what you're going to be talking about, what things are being compared, the numbers, and the time. So let's look at this right now before we get started, and this will help you the next time you do an academic writing. The first thing I would point out is the time, right? You've got comparing 2 times in the past. Now this will greatly affect your grammar throughout. 1, it'll help you better understand what you're comparing and when. And 2, time greatly affects which grammar you use. So this is really important. The next thing to point out is that on the left, the numbers actually change. You can see on the top bar chart that, it goes up to 100,000. On the bottom bar chart, it goes up to 250,000. So that's one really big point, that we can feel that the overall numbers have changed a lot between these 2 times. The next thing to point out is that the number 1 course has changed. We can see that it was law and now it's nursing, so that's a very key feature that you need to notice. On top of this, you can see that the other courses are fewer, but not by too much, right? Like they do go down, so that's another thing that you can notice. And for the last thing to notice, you can see that nursing is much higher than the other courses. So that's all something that you should notice, and you're allowed to write on the paper. And you should be making lots of notes, because if you have a good game plan or a good strategy before you go in and write it, then you'll do so much better, because you're basically just putting the vocabulary in. But if you start writing little bit, it's very easy to lose your point, and your score will go down. So again, it's really important to spend about 5 minutes at least making sure that you have a good idea of what you're going to write about, rather than just rushing in to write it. Now I'm going to focus on the 4 areas one by one. We can see at the top of this slide that we're going to talk about task achievement first. So I'm going to just give feedback, good, bad, and things to improve on, but we're just going to focus on task achievement slide by slide. The first thing is, between 2007 and 2014, admissions rose on all the courses, so the introduction of tuition fees did not stop people from applying to university. However, some courses grew more than others. This is an absolutely fantastic introduction, okay? It restates what the topic is, and it also gives a great overview. So it's great. There's no numbers here, there's no extra words. This writer just gets right to the point, doesn't waste words. I say that because many candidates will try to add lots of words in the introduction, and examiners kind of know what you're doing. They know that you're, not really writing something, that's giving information. You're just using expressions to, memorized expressions, especially for the introduction. So I really recommend that you don't waste your words in the introduction, because the examiner is looking for how well you actually give information later. Next, we'll start with the first paragraph. The biggest change was nursing, and that's really important to point out. And everything in this paragraph supports that. And I totally agree. That is the biggest thing. That is something that you should point out right away. Now, where there's a little reporting problem is admissions tripled. Well, they didn't just triple. The accurate, so it's not accurate, as the amount almost quadrupled. Almost, not quite. And also, you need to give the numbers, right? Like, if I was reading this, what does quadrupled mean? Does it mean it started at 10,000 and went to 40,000? Did it start at 100,000 and go to 400,000? It's really important, to give the numbers. Like, it's great that the person used a different number, like, a different expression other than, just the numbers, using tripled. Even though it's wrong, it's a good try, but you've got to say the actual numbers throughout. That's important for reporting information, and it's really important to get a high score in task achievement. And it said here, it's now the most popular course on the study. Absolutely valid point. This is a good point to make. Okay, so like I said, that is the main point of the study. And all the medical courses continued to be popular? Well, it's partially correct, right? But preclinical medicine is still popular, but it is no longer third like it was in 2007. That's important to mention, right? Because there's no specific numbers given for that. So again, pretty good first paragraph after the introduction, but this will affect task achievement quite negatively because the wrong information was given and not enough numbers were given. Okay. Now moving on to the next paragraph. In 2007, law was the most popular course, and it still remains. It's better to mention it is now third and did not grow that much. So again, it's really important that you mention that because you're just giving more information. And a big jump from 70,000 to nearly 100,000 at admissions, while the number of students doing computer science went up from around 55,000 to 75,000. Okay, an increase of 50% over the 7 years. This is absolutely fantastic, right? Because it talked about how much it increased, it gave the numbers, it's great. So this is a really good point to make here. And then in fact, admissions did not drop in any of the courses in the study. Also a very valid point, okay? Which shows that all of the subjects are continuing to attract new students. So all of this is extremely valid and worth pointing out, and it's a great way to finish this. Now looking at the score, I will say it is a band 7, right? Really important, presents a clear overview of the main trends. Absolutely, really important. If you don't have an overview, it drops down to a 5. So this is really, really important, okay? It could be more fully extended. This is what I mentioned about the numbers, right? Giving information, giving it accurately. So yeah, that's pretty important. Now, the really dangerous thing is it might be band 6, okay? It might be band 6, and you can see that I've highlighted inaccurate. And that was going back to the first paragraph where the information wasn't recorded well enough. Now that would be for a much stricter examiner. I do think that there was enough information given for a band 7, but again, you have to be careful. If you're reporting information inaccurately, you're risking getting a 6 or even a 5 for task achievement. And this could, affect your overall score. So yeah, you have to be careful that you're reporting information well. And again, this comes back to making a very clear plan, which you should be doing. So yeah, it's a band 7 overall. Now, moving on to coherence and cohesion, let's look at the good things, the things that could be improved, and the mistakes. Starting with so. Well, I always say it's, you got to be careful to not use so too much. There are a lot of synonyms, right? Therefore, thus, okay? Try not to use so in your writing because it's hard to fix it in your speaking. You're trying to think of ideas quickly, but in your writing, it's always best to avoid it. And if you do use it, try to only use it once, okay? It's much better to use therefore or thus twice than use so twice because you're showing the examiner that you do have a range of connecting words. However, this is a great connecting word rather than but. Instead of just saying but, however, so this is quite good. And it, well, it is referring back to the previous sentence. So admissions, if we go back, it says admissions tripled from 2000 to 2014. And it is now the most popular course. And it's going back to nursing. So this is a great referencing back. Now on to the next one. In 2007, we can have a look here. The most popular course, right? Law was the most popular course, and it, again, this is good referencing back to law, okay? So using these pronouns referencing back, the examiner will notice this. This is how people write in English, right? They don't keep saying law, law, law. They use pronouns or other expressions, and it's very, very good to do this if you want to get a band 7 or higher. Next, it said it. Again, this is referencing back, but it, to improve a little bit, you could use a better referencing word, right? You could say like, this course. Again, it's not, just using it. This would all help put you into a band 8 or 9 because you're showing some flexibility with your referencing. What's missing here? 2 other courses. Well, if you're going to begin a different paragraph, it would be better to put in addition, right? Just to show that you're furthering a point, okay? And then here, design, well, you could add something in here, for example, right, to illustrate this. So these kind of connecting words, they make it easier to read, but obviously you're shooting for a higher score, and that's what you want. But again, if you look at good writing, they will use a lot of connecting words. And again, this is absolutely critical for getting a 7 or higher, to use them well, to use them accurately, and make your writing connect well. Moving on, while, this is actually a connecting word, right? Design had a big jump from 70,000 to nearly 100,000 in admissions, while, or at the same time. So this is actually kind of a grammar word, but it's actually a connecting word. So while the number of students doing computer science went up from around 55,000 to 75,000, this word is connecting 2 times. It's showing that 2 things happened at the same time. So this actually is a good connecting word. And then in fact, you're showing kind of like a final point. It would be a little bit better maybe to write in summary, but still it's starting the paragraph with kind of a connecting word to show that you're going on to make another point. Now the score here would be band 7, and let's go through why. There's a clear progression throughout. When you're reading it, it's very easy to follow. It's not confusing. And it's quite simple to read. It could be better, but again, it's very easy to follow. Okay, now this is again uses a range of cohesive devices appropriately, although there may be some underuse, and that's where I put in the yellow, just to make it a little clearer. Like for example, so that's why it would be a band 7, not a band 8. Because manages all aspects of cohesion well, okay? So there were some times when I thought, they could use a bit better of a range, so that's why it couldn't be a band 8. Now moving on to lexical range and accuracy, and this is basically just the vocabulary. Now it didn't so admissions rose on all the courses, okay? And again, this will come up later, but rose, past tense, and then for all it should be for, okay? And this is, again, just a preposition mistake, so it's not a big deal, but it is incorrect. To university, it'd be better to write universities, plural, like it is in the prompt, because it's important to distinguish that, it is universities, plural, in a country. Some courses, this is not wrong, but it would be better to use a synonym like majors, right? A big part of the lexical range is, using different words that have the same meaning. So it's a good idea if you see courses on the question to think of some synonyms before you even start writing, because this will come in handy when you're writing, to have different words other than courses. Admissions tripled. Well, again, the number of students. It's just a different way to say the same thing. Okay, so again, this is really helpful. It's not wrong, That's why it's in yellow. It's kind of like a little warning. This is how you could improve. And then on the study again, well, in, so again, just a little preposition mistake here. Grew by, this is the second time, so you could put increased by. Again, this would just help your overall range, which helps get you into an 8, a 7 or 8. And then here we see admissions one more time. Uh-oh. You have to be careful. Try not to use the same word over and over. You could say applicants. And finally, we have popular. Again, it's not wrong, but popular does appear a lot in this essay. It would look a lot nicer if you used a synonym like favored. Okay, moving on to writing, the next part. So here we go. We've got popular again. What's another synonym we could use? Well, we could use chosen. Okay, the most chosen course. Next one, you got course again. So you could say curriculum. Again, this is just a synonym for course. Admissions, we see it again. Well, you could write pupils. It is hard, right? But it is really helpful to think of synonyms for these words. Courses again. Why can't we say no need to keep writing courses? We know that the writer's talking about courses, so you could say two others saw a very large increase, because we know others is referring back to courses, okay? So you don't have to keep saying courses. Here's a good point. Saw a very large increase. Great expression, right? And then to nearly, this is great, perfectly used. It's not exactly 100,000, so it is a great approximation language, so that's also quite good. Next, we've got went up. Fantastic. A different expression for grow or grew. And then we've got students again. And, a good synonym would be, maybe undergraduates. That would be great to use because the study is focusing on university students, okay? So this would be great if you could use undergraduates as a synonym for students because they're going to university or college. That would be fantastic. And let's look at the scores for this one. So it will be a band 7. Let's look at why. It's a sufficient range of vocabulary to allow some flexibility. So that's the key thing, or it's a sufficient range. Again, some flexibility. And some awareness of style. Again, the awareness was pretty good, but there's some awareness. And occasional errors, there was a couple there. So this is why it would fall into a band 7. And it's definitely not a band 8 because wide range of vocabulary. This is when it falls into like the synonyms using other expressions for courses or students. That's why it couldn't be a band 8. So, yep, it's a band 7 overall. It's good, but it could be improved and needs to be improved if it needs to be a band 8 or 9. The interesting thing is, this writer is really good, but again, it's not just being accurate. You need that range to get into a band 8. That range is so critical. It's not just about being accurate. It really is important to use a good range of expressions. Okay, moving on to grammatical range and accuracy. Let's have a look at this. So, did not stop people from applying. This is great. This is absolutely great. Complex clause with gerund, right? Did not stop. So you've got, did not stop, negative, people, and then from applying. The ing, spelling's perfect. So this is great. It's not to be overlooked. The examiners will notice this kind of complex clause and using the gerund, both spelling correctly. So this is great. It is now the most popular. It could be, a little bit more, this is totally fine, but it could be a bit more technical. Had become the most popular because it finished in the past, right? Now, if you look at the time, it's in the past, right? So this is really critical because, again, it's not now, it's in the past. So while the grammar is accurate for now, it is in the past. So, past perfect would be, fantastic. If you just use simple past, it would still be better. So this is a bit of a problem, and this is why I said, you have to be careful with the time expressions. Now I will say, and I'll point it out later, that this is a consistent mistake that the writer makes. So it's not like each time the person does it, it's wrong. It's, kind of keeps lowering the score because it is a consistent mistake. All right, moving on. You've got remains. Again, remained because it's in the past. But again, this is a consistent kind of present grammar form mistake. So it's, it's less of a big deal. Like if the person was kind of switching between both grammars, it would be more of a problem. Again, we talked about this in coherence and cohesion, but this is a great connection of two perfect clauses. A big jump from 70,000 to 100,000 admissions. The number of students doing computer science went up. Again, everything's perfect. Even the comma, an increase of 50% over the 7 years, a great long sentence. And then again, admissions did not drop. Okay. You could say had not dropped. Again, it's perfectly accurate. It's just you would get a higher kind of grammar range if you used, this expression because it's something that finished in the past. All right, so this is a band 7. Use a variety of complex sentences. Again, there was a bit of a problem with the time, right? Sometimes a little present, sometimes in the past. That's a bit of a problem. It wouldn't be enough to drop this candidate down to a 6. It would be a band 7, okay? Uses a wide range of structures? No, right? So this is a band 7. And again, it couldn't be a band 8 because there were some issues with the times. The accuracy was fantastic and the range was good, so that's enough to put it into a band 7. But overall, it's not nearly enough because of the time expressions and the time tenses to put it into a band 8. So let's look at the overall score. Well, it's a band 7. Task achievement was a 6. Again, this was the lowest part, and then 777. So this would give it a 7 overall. Okay. Obviously, I feel like there's some easy changes that could be made, like more accurate reporting could have given task achievement a 7. Using synonyms, could have put it into an 8. So yeah, this definitely was well written. And, as an examiner, even though we can feel that the person writing it is quite fluent, which this person seems to be, you have to be really careful with the time. And this goes back to what I was saying about preparing. You need to prepare really well to make sure you're always talking about the past in this case, right? And also when you're preparing, thinking of synonyms for like admissions or students, courses, these will all, like this preparation will really help you when you're writing it, because you can throw these words in and get a higher score, okay? So I definitely feel like this student or this candidate could get a 7.5 or even 8 with just a little more awareness of what is being looked for on the exam.